I was reading about what happened to you, and you were so heavily persecuted, and eventually you were convicted of election fraud and sentenced to 3 years in prison. And it was, a lot of people, people said it was very disproportionate sentence, and it was overturned on appeal, which was great. But you spent 11 weeks in prison for something that you didn't do.
Correct. People ask me about that, and I'll tell you the guts of it. When I registered the political party in Queensland in 1998 to stand for the election then, 1998, we had to put up 500 members' names. The allegation was they weren't really 500 members of the political party, but 500 members of Pauline Hanson's support movement.
Oh, I see.
So that's what they proved. And of course, because of the election, I then received 2 cheques from the Electoral Commission, which is paid out on expenses. Those 2 cheques, because they were more than $5,000 each, and in my name, because I was party agent, you've got to have a person. So each charge, there was 3 charges. They found me guilty in the first charge. They weren't 500 members of the political party, but a support movement. Because I received those other 2 cheques, went straight into the legal bank account, trust account. Each sentence carried with it 3 years.
Gosh.
And I was served them concurrently for 3 years non-parole. And it was on the 3rd attempt at an appeal that finally I was released. The whole thing was quashed, and I should never have been charged in the first place, because under the Electoral Act, it did state, but Daisy, to this day, there were 500 members of the political party, and that was proven.
Absolutely.
We had 18,000 members at that time. Why would I go to a support movement for the membership? And under the Act, it did state, anyway, that members of a political party or an entity of that party. So therefore, I should never have been charged over it. It was about to stop me. That was all about. This is politics. My father said to me, he said, why do you want to get into it? He said, it's a dirty game. My father warned me. And I said to Dad, with an attitude like that, nothing will ever change. I said, I don't know if I'll ever change anything, but I won't know unless I have a go. And I said, you know what, Dad, I'm having a go. And that was after the Liberal Party threw me out, and I went down to see my parents, and he said, why do you have to open your mouth? But after I was out, Dad said to me, he said, you're not going to give up, are you? You're going to keep going. And Dad passed away before he saw me that I got back into politics.
Yeah. But I'm sure he's watching from heaven and is incredibly proud with what you've achieved and how resilient you've been. And tell me, I hate to ask the question, what was it like when you were in jail? I mean, it must have been horrible, 1, being in there, but 2, knowing you were in there for something you didn't do. I mean, what was it like with the other women in there? How did you cope?
Daisy, it was, to go back to that day, my daughter said to me, Mum, I'm going over to New Zealand with my boyfriend, and she said, I really don't want to go. I said, honey, there's no way in the wide world could they find me guilty with this. And I said, go for your holiday. So anyway, when the sentence came down, and I came back from lunch with friends and everyone like that, and the jury had come back, and when I found not guilty, I just melted. And then they handcuffed me and took me downstairs. And then I'm sort of still in shock with all this, Daisy. And then I had a strip search down there. Then they put me in a paddy wag, and I was in the watch house that night before they took me out the prison the next day. I just decided I wasn't going to eat. And there was an officer that came to me, and he said the next morning, he said, Pauline, here's something for you if you have something to eat. He said, I'm part Aboriginal. He said, and my mother's Aboriginal. He said, but we fully support you. And he said, never give up. And then be taken to the prison and to go through that, being photographed and everything like that. And then the prison, they actually put me into the hospital ward because I still wasn't eating. Okay. And so anyway, and I saw my daughter on TV that night, and I just broke down. Saw her with an interview, the media spoke to her, and I was so proud of her, what she said. She was only 19 at the time. My son was actually, what I heard from the security people, that he actually drove out and he was actually sitting outside the prison in his car.
Oh, my goodness.
Because he he saw that as the only way closest he could be to me. So anyway, he was told to move on, that he couldn't stay there. I had supporters and members of the party go and park outside the prison with their placards and support for me. The public support was coming at 90%. They thought it was just ridiculous that I should not have been put in prison. What happened was, Daisy, I was in the hospital ward for a couple of days. Finally, they said to me, if you don't start eating, you'll be put in a straitjacket into a cell with padded walls. And they said, so you make a decision what you're going to do. So then I decided. Then they put me into the main prison, first off in a cell, which they kept me there for another 48 hours. And then with the lights on all night. And I said, you're only stressing me out more with this. Why do you have to have the lights on me all night, these fluoro lights? The guards were really good. They did try to help. But anyway, Daisy, I sort of moved on from there and I actually helped other female prisoners. One, she was constantly telling me about her case. I finally then, before I left, I got her legal representation. I wrote to the legal people and I said, you've got to give her... She was in there for murdering her partner. And,
oh, wow.
So anyway, I got her decent legal representation. I actually helped her do her submission and she ended up getting released. Again, after I got out, she came here for Christmas. I got out of prison. She got out of prison just a matter of weeks after me. That was in November. She ended up spending Christmas here. She went home to a house that was actually ransacked and
oh my gosh,
and burnt down. So she spent Christmas here with me. I got her decent legal representation. She had a trial. She was found not guilty, and there was an investigation in how the police handled the case. Another Aboriginal woman having a 7th child in there. I wrote and got her housing commission when she got out of prison. So she was absolutely devastated when I got released. And I got letters from her. On show, she said, "You're my angel." She said, "I'm going to miss you so much." So anyway, Gracie was she was another one, and so I was able to help some of the women in there, and I sort of got myself together, and I got them all over into the fitness program anyway. No one went. No, I had 13 turn up with me one day, and he nearly fell over. I've pulled myself together, and I saw, and just this little bit, it's funny, I was sitting in my cell, because you have a cell by yourself, and I had this, probably a politician walking through, and I just looked up and I shook my head, you've got no idea. And that's another experience in my life that I know what prison's about, and I've been there, and if we're going to turn it around, we really need to look at our prison system.